So, welcome everyone, and we'll start trying to generate a good intention motivation for being here. So we can think, how lucky and fortunate we are to have this precious human life, to have this opportunity to practice the Dharma. So therefore, I must not waste this great opportunity and make most of it. And the purpose of practicing the Dharma is to transform and change our attitude, our mind, from being too selfish to less selfish, and from having too much delusions to have less delusions. And trying to cultivate and improve the positive state of mind, positive qualities, as much as possible. And may I ask you coming together to listen, to engage in discussions, reflection, contemplations. May it become cause and condition to obtain our highest potential, the fully awakened state. Okay. So we can start with the short mandala. Sa shi be ge chung shin me to ta de ra de shi yin de gen ba de sang ke shin to mi de o ma do kun namo ta shin je para sho je la ma tam ba ke na ke ju kun ka la ke ze ju zhen ti ji da zang bei du je zhe ma sa ge ju ji cha ma du so idam guru rana mandala viyataya. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supremacy. By the merits I create to listen to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Jodam Soge Chonam La Chanju Padu Dane Sage Shuje Gibe Sonam Dola Penje Sangye Duba Sangye Jodam Soge Chonam Chanju Padu Dane Sage Shuje Gibe Sonam Dola Penje Sangye Duba Sho. Quand j'ai tout génie son nez, dans le temps, mais j'ai tombé sur les têtes, autant de la chasse, So again, welcome and thank you for joining. And I think for Shantideva, I think in a lot of time, I think we did a lot of more technical text. I think few different Nagarjuna's texts. So I think this time we kind of went more on Lojong. So yeah, so again, I think yeah, it's nice to see all of you, even though it's on Zoom. It has been a while since we saw in person, but yeah. So anyway, it's nice to again reconnect through Zoom. So normally, I think, yeah, I think we study more of the Lojong's mind training, mostly by reading by Kadamba masters, Tibetan Kadamba masters. And so this is one of Indian masters of that Lojong practice. And of course, these are one of the source for the 8 verses of mind training, 7-point mind trainings, and many of the other mind training that was written later by the Tibetan Kadamba masters. Okay, so again, you can see it's a short and not too much difficult in understanding the concept itself. Which most of the Lojongs are like that. It's more difficult in actually applying and practicing. That become more challenging than intellectual understanding. And it is short, but it contains so many practices. Even though verse-wise there isn't so many verse, but it kind of contains so many advice, instructions, practice. Yeah. Okay. So if we start with that, and I will, at the end, I will have a time for questions. For few, I will leave at the end. So normally, I think it's better to leave at the end so that there is more flow, too much interruptions. Okay. So like most texts, start with the homage. So here, homage to the great compassions. So again, this being a Bodhisattvas practice and teachings, and the root of the Bodhisattvas practice is the compassion and great compassions. So, and similarly, is similar to the homage paid by Chandrakirti in his Madhyamika Alankara, in his middle way commentary to the Nagarjunas, where he starts with paying homage to the compassions by saying that compassion is very important for a Bodhisattva or Mahayana practitioner at the very beginning of their path is very important in the middle while on their path, and very important at the end when they have perfected their path and achieved enlightenment. And therefore, compassion being very important for the Bodhisattvas path at the beginning, middle, and end. So therefore, he paid homage to the compassions. And with the examples, he said the very beginning is like the seed, middle is like the water that help the seed to grow and not dry up, At the end, then it is like a fruit that you experience having planted that. And similarly, he explained at the very beginning, great compassion is the gateway to enter the Bodhisattva's path. Great compassion is the root of the bodhicitta. And when you actualize the bodhicitta, then that is when you become bodhisattva, and that is when you enter the first bodhisattva path. And so therefore, at the very beginning, and it is the great compassion that is the that awaken our Mahayana lineage, and so great compassion is the very important at the very beginning, because it is that great compassion that lead it to the Bodhisattva path. And in the middle, while we are in Bodhisattva path, throughout the four path, 10 bhumis, engage in different Bodhisattva conduct or practice, such as 6th perfection, 10th perfection, and so forth. What make the practitioner to continue on their path and without kind of relapsing or going back is that compassion, is the compassion that keep you on the path. If you lose the great compassion, then you will lose the Bodhisattva path. If you lose the great compassion, you lose the bodhicitta. If you lose the bodhicitta, then you lose the Bodhisattva path. And so it is that the great compassion that keep the practitioner to be on the path throughout on the path. And in the end, when you achieve fully enlightenment, then it's like experience the result, the fruit, that you are able to fulfill the greatest health and benefit of yourself and others. When you have achieved that, and it is that great compassion, even at that time, it is the great compassion that makes the fully enlightened one, the Buddhas, to fulfill the needs of sentient beings, to fulfill the well-being of sentient beings, everyone. And so therefore that is, so here also, that is why it pay homage to great compassion, the great compassion being so crucial and important. I think it is the very foundation of all the Buddha's teachings. The compassion is the very foundation of all the Buddha's teachings, and especially great compassion absolutely is the very heart of the Bodhisattva's practice, Bodhisattva's and Mahayana practice and Bodhisattva practice. So then next, paying homage to the teachers. So then here is paying to all the lineage and direct spiritual master, teacher, from whom Atisha received all these teachings, instructions, So of course there are certain teachers from whom he received directly, those teaching instructions, oral transmissions, commentaries, so forth. But then there are also other teachers that he has never met, but lineage teachers from whom those instructions and teaching were passed from one teacher to another teacher. So So it is paying homage to all the lineage and direct masters. And I think mostly, he always says, Lama Selingba, from Indonesia now, where he studied for 12 years, especially on Bodhisattva practice instructions, so, and he always says, one thing that I have is good heart. Of course, he never says it's Bodhisattva, but it is Bodhisattva, but he's being very kind of humble. He's just saying, one thing I have is a good heart, and it's the kindness of that teachers that he was able to achieve that good heart. So he always, when he remembered the Lama Selingba, when he mentioned that, he always tried to fold his hand with a very high regard of that. And so definitely that would be. And then next, homage to faith divinities. In the other translations, homage to the deities who inspire faith and devotions. I kind of like that that translations. So deities, again, deities are Buddhas, but normally when we say deities, then it refers to personal Buddhas that we have certain strong connections, So practitioners, practitioners have certain karmic connection with certain Buddhas, and then they take that as their personal kind of deities and rely on them, specifically. That's what we call yidam, or the deity, And so here, all the deities who inspired faith and devotions, and most here, because this is the practice of compassion, Bodhisattvas, so, especially Avalokiteshvara, and in terms of Atisha, his own personal deity, Tara was his personal deity, and so probably it could be also both Tara and Avalokiteshvara, and because Atisha relied very much on Tara to make a lot of his spiritual big decisions. So that was his personal deity, So paying homage to that personal deity Tara and all others that inspire faith and devotions and the practice. So that is the homage, and then next start the first verse. So discard all lingering doubts and start with the dedication in your practice. So whatever practice we do, whatever form of practice, meditation one engage into, whether it's practice meditation to improve your concentration, to improve your focus, attentions, whether it's mindful meditation, shamatha meditation, or whether it's a contemplative meditations, lumbering meditations, or whether it's Vajrayana tantric practice meditation, whatever practice, whatever form of practice, whatever meditation practice that we try to do here, here his advice is when you, whatever you try to practice, try to not have any doubt and in decisions, in decisions. Instead, embrace the practice, with all your heart, fully, When you have doubt, when you are indecisive, then your mind is not fully there. Your heart is not full there. And if your heart is not full there, then your practice does not become so powerful. So therefore, first, if we have any doubt, then we try to study more and try to study more, and trying to clear some of those doubts, because when we practice with two-minded, doubt, indecisive, with that kind of two-minded, then your practice doesn't become so powerful, effective, because your mind, your heart is not fully there. Your mind is divided, so with that kind of mind, that kind of divided mind, then, regardless whatever practice, meditation you do, it doesn't become so effective, so powerful. But on the other hand, when you practice, whatever practice you do, with total convictions, without any doubt, without any two-minded, then, and you give with your full heart in that practice, then no matter what practice you do, it becomes more powerful, more effective. And so that is the advice here. Slowly relinquish sloth, mental dullness, and laziness, and start always with joyful perseverance. So again, when we try to practice whatever form of practice, meditations, one try to practice without sloth or, lethargy, like kind of sleepy, and then, even you are not fully sleepy, but your mind is not so alert, kind of dullness, your mind is kind of not alert in dullness, and laziness, and not having inspirations, enthusiasm in that practice and meditations, So when our mind is under the influence of laziness, sloth or mental dullness, then again, whatever practice meditation we try to do, again, it doesn't become so strong, effective, because your mind is not alert there. Your mind is not alert, and there's no enthusiasm in that. So instead of that, then here, start always with joyful perseverance or enthusiasm in your practice. So if there's enthusiasm in your practice, you will enjoy the practice more. If you enjoy the practice more, you will have a better result. You don't have to push yourself. If there is enthusiasm, if there is joyfulness in your practice, meditation, if you have that, then, then you will enjoy the practice. You will find the time to practice. You wouldn't have any excuse to practice. At the moment, we have all excuse not to practice. At the moment, we have all the excuse not to practice because there is no intuitive joyfulness in that. When you enjoy doing something, you find a way to find the time for that. You always manage to find time for that. But when you don't enjoy it, then there is always, even when you have time, you always excuse not to do that. And so therefore, joyfulness or enthusiasm in your practice become very important. And so, in terms of laziness, there could be many forms of laziness, one form of laziness is, you feel uninterested, uninterested in that. And so in order to overcome that kind of laziness, to feel more enthusiasm and more interested in whatever practice, meditations, then we have to contemplate and meditate on the benefit of such practice. By benefiting on the practice, by meditating, contemplating on the benefit of practice, and if you see great benefit of such practice, then you will be more inspired to do that. If you don't see so much benefit in doing that, then you will not be so inspired or in engaging in that. So therefore, to inspire and to sparkle the enthusiasm, the interest, then one need to study and contemplate, meditate more on all the benefit of that particular practice and meditations. Another laziness is that, even we have sometimes some interest and maybe some interest, but we keep on postponing, thinking I can do maybe today evening. By morning, you think maybe I will do afternoon. Afternoon, I will do by evening. By evening, you feel I'm a little bit tired today. Maybe I could do tomorrow, And maybe by tomorrow, you feel, oh, today I'm too busy. Maybe I could do tomorrow, next week. And you keep on kind of postponing that, We keep on doing that. So that is one level of laziness, that we want to do it, but somehow we just keep on postponing it and always feeling there is a time to do that later. But feeling there is a time to do later, but not being able to manage to find that time later and keep on putting it. And so for that, then, meditations, contemplation, impermanent in general, and especially dead impermanent helps. When you really meditate, contemplate on, how all conditions, phenomena are impermanent, ever changing, nothing lasts, and especially our life, not only death will come, we never know when it's going to come, how I cannot postpone up to next week because death could come before next week, or I cannot postpone until tomorrow, maybe death could come before that. So through meditations on death impermanence, especially uncertainty of the time, we don't know exactly, we cannot guarantee when it will come. We cannot guarantee that we will live one more day, one more week, one more life, one more year, one more, and therefore with that, when you really contemplate, meditate, and when you really know that, then you feel there's no time to waste, no time to waste. One feel there's no time to waste and start practicing now instead of postponing and keeping, so that to. And sometimes one of the reasons laziness is because sometimes maybe we don't believe and trust in ourselves, or sometimes the practice itself, maybe we think, oh, I cannot, I'm not a good practitioner, even I'm not a good practitioner. And so therefore, the moment you don't have trust in yourself and you feel you are not a good practitioner, I'm this and that, and you already put your potential, and then that make you again less enthusiastic, it make you less enthusiasm in practicing. And so then to deal with that, then you try to, one need to uplift yourself, through meditation on, meditation on Buddha nature, meditating on Buddha nature, the Buddhas mentions, even the insects, they have the Buddha nature, and even they can achieve enlightenment. And if that is the case, of course, we are human beings, made the Dharma, and we have much more better conditions to achieve. Therefore, so contemplating, meditating on the Buddha nature, the potential that we have, and through that we try to uplift ourselves and believe in ourselves and our potential, our ability. And through that, then again, it can uplift and precious human rebirth and so on. And through that, then we can kind of overcome different kind of laziness. And through having coming a different kind of laziness, then we try to develop more enthusiasm and more joyful in perseverance, effort in your practice. And one important factors to have an enthusiasm or joyful in your practice is that, one of the things I says, you can be very creative and flexible in your practice, You don't have to be so rigid. Like in all meditation teachings, texts, you find certain tools, meditation tools, you find they're guided. But if that doesn't even after doing those meditation, after a certain time it doesn't really touch your heart, or it doesn't move your heart, then sometimes you have to change a little bit, You have to change a little bit without losing the essence. You can actually change a little bit. You can be flexible in that. One can be flexible, so you don't have to be so rigid. That is the only way, Being flexible and changing slightly can make you enjoy the practice more, And also, trying to make it more enjoyable, whatever practice meditation, how can you make it more enjoyable? Trying to figure out, trying to find your own way to make it more enjoyable, like in many other things in our life, something. And so if you can find with your own, trying a little bit here and there and being a little flexible and a little bit trying to, and then you might find, and you can find certain way that might make you more enjoyable. And then if you enjoy it, then definitely, that will help a lot in our practice, It is that kind of enthusiasm is important, very important factor. Joyful effort in your practice for the virtues is very important. I don't know, I think it's Chandrakirti or someone I think it is Chandakiri, or Nagarjuna, I think it's Chandakiri, where he said all the positive spiritual qualities, all the spiritual positive qualities come through, joyous effort in virtues, all the positive spiritual qualities, all the spiritual positive qualities come through the perseverance, the joyful perseverance, and it's true, so in order to have success in our practice, so that is, and this instruction, advice, we can take and apply to all practice, all meditation, all practice. We can apply that is to all different practice, whatever practice we do. It is not just regarded one particular practice. One particular practice is you apply that to all practice. And secondly, now in verse number 2, with mindful, vigilant, and conscientiousness, constantly guard the gateway of your senses. So here, the practice of the mindfulness, vigilant, and consciousness or careful, because, one of the reasons why we break or unable to keep the precepts, whatever precept that we have taken, or whatever commitment we might have made and not being able to keep those commitments or precepts, one of the reasons is because we don't guard the gateway to the senses. We follow our senses all the time. You see something and your mind runs after it. You see something, you follow the senses, and by following the senses, you see something beautiful, then your mind runs after that and attachment arises. Then you see something unpleasant and your mind followed that, and we become dislike, it develop dislike or aversion towards that. Because what we saw, and same with what we hear, same with what we smell, same with what we taste, and so senses, if you don't guard senses, when your sense come in contact with objects, if you don't guard it, then that sense lead to the different negative emotions, attachment, aversions, and so forth. And then that become cause of problem, suffering for us and others. And so therefore, when you are more mindful, then you can watch your mind from, even though you see from the senses, but you don't follow what after that, you don't allow your mind to follow with anger or aversions or attachments after coming in contact with that. So that is, in that way, then it helps us not to suffer so much. And, because we suffer so much due to attachment and anger, And so therefore, being careful, conscious, and mindful and vigilant, and then again and again, 3 times, both day and night, examine the flow of your thoughts. So of course, 3 times a day and night is just giving an example, Throughout the day and night, you try to be watchful of your physical actions, your speech, and your thoughts, mind, especially the mind, because especially the thought, the mind, is the one that lead to many others actions. And so therefore, watching it and being mindful. One of the Katamba masters, Geshe Gungen, his name was Geshe Gungen. And it is said at the earlier part of his life, he was a very well-known bandit or robberist, that he kind of robbed people in the daytimes. But later, he regretted what he did in his life, and he followed the path, Dharma, and he even became a monk, and one of his main practice of mindfulness, always watching his mind, always watching his actions, mind. And it mentioned, like one family invited him for certain ceremony pujas to be done at their house, And then he went to the ceremony pujas, and he was in the house. The family went outside to do other things. And then he saw there stacks of tea, what do you call, tea bricks of tea, like in old time, that is what it had. Like in Tibet, that is what they make tea, we didn't have tea bags, it's like a brick, you break small, and so he saw, because of so much imprint from his past, when stealing and robbing all the time, immediately his hand went inside to steal that, because he saw the people, the owner was not in the house, and immediately he saw. And then because he was always practicing mindful, immediately he recognized that. Immediately, I'm stealing. Immediately he recognized that. If he was not mindful at that moment, he would have already taken it and went it. But because of his mindfulness, he was able to watch and able to observe and able to catch it immediately. And then it is said, his hand, one hand was in that bag. He held the other hand like this and shouted, "There is a thief in the house, there is a thief in the house." The owners came running, and they didn't see anyone except him. They said, "Where is the thief? We don't see the thief. Where is the thief?" He said, Here, this is the thief. Here is the thief." He pointed to his hand, and then, "Here is the thief." He must be not only very practically mindful, he is a very courageous, and to be able to do that, instantly, we would be so embarrassed to do that. Even we have thought of that, we will not steal it, but we will not do that way. But his way of doing was very, very, and it became very effective to him. If we can do that, I think it can become very effective. Then really, because you are pointing, it will come also later. You are showing all your shortcomings. Not hiding them. And to do that, you must be very courageous and brave. And to be able to do that, it required a lot of courage and bravery, and also, by doing that, he can really reduce his, self-importance, or, arrogance, sense of arrogance, pride, it really kind of become strong antidote to be able to do that, So anyway, that was there are many stories of him, I think another story was that, they were having a ceremonies, pujas in the monastery, and they were served, yogurt. They were being served yogurt, in the ceremony. And because he was young, he was new monk, so his row was in the last, very last. And they served from the first row to the last row, when they serve. So when the monks came and were serving the yogurt, and of course he was attached to the yogurt, it looks great, and he started getting wary. Because he saw the monks at the very beginning pouring a lot of yogurt in the first row, and he started thinking, by the time it come to me in my last row, it might finish. So he started worrying about that, Again, he caught up his mind immediately with mindfulness. Again, he caught up. I'm attached, and because of that attachment, I'm worrying, unnecessary worry that we do a lot of time. And when they served, then when his time came, of course there was enough, there was enough for everyone. But he was worrying about that, not getting, and because he desperately wanted, he was so attached to that, And again, that is how he felt, but that is a really good teaching for us, because that is a lot of time we do that. We're attached to certain things, and then unnecessarily we started worrying, going everything wrong. It might go wrong. I might not get this. This might go that way. This all unnecessary. We go through all this unnecessary, lot of fear, worry, anxieties. And because of that, the attachment to the outcome, attachment to the, whatever that is, So anyway, and then when the monks came to say, have the bowl, he put his bowl upside down and said, I already ate before. So he's saying his mind, when the moment he had that attachment, he said that was when he ate it. So he put his bowl upside down and he said, I already ate it. So again, that was his practice, always. And there are many other stories I won't go, but that was how he deal. He always being so watchful, mindful of his actions and his thoughts, and immediately when he through mindfulness and vigilant, whenever he saw something negative thoughts coming, he immediately recognized and he tried to apply antidote immediately. In that moment, in that time. And through that, he is able to make a huge progress. And eventually, he became a really great practitioner, great master, and great inspirations. And it is said, a lot of, because he became great inspiration from who he was to become what he was, At the earlier life of his life, he was very feared robbery. But from that, he transformed and became such a great practitioner, And he was able to transform that. One of the main practice was the vigilance, the mindfulness. That was what he applied, And therefore, in one of his teaching, he says, I have no other job or no other practice, no other thing to do than to guard the door of my mind with the spears, like the spears, like in the old times, the guards, they have the spears, now the gun, So I have no other practice. I have no other things to do than guard my gateway of my mind with the weapons or spears of mindfulness and vigilance. And when the negative emotion, afflictive emotion become active, I will be more alert. When they rest, I will also rest. When the negative feelings, negative thoughts, the delusion, when they don't become active, manifesting, arising, then he said he will rest a little bit. But when they become active, he will be even more alert and try to guard it. And that is very similar here, same. And it's similar also in 8 verses of mind training. I think maybe it's third verses. Yeah. 这种公园多少年嘛？大家嘛，现在同那个，看到是那种大家。Where it says in all your activities, always and always investigate or analyze your thoughts with the mindfulness introspection. And the moment you recognize the delusion arising by understanding that delusion endanger yourself and others, immediately try to apply the antidote. May I be able to apply the antidote without any delay? So I think it's same here. And so and I think, for us, of course, it would be great if we can be mindful 24 hours, but it's not possible to reach that way immediately. So one way of, because we need starting point and then slowly improve, and so sometimes what you can do is maybe you can set up alarm, in your phone with certain sound, specific sound, to remind you to stop doing whatever you are doing for a few moments, even few seconds, few moments, and being mindful in that moment, what am I thinking now? What thoughts going in my mind at the moment? What I am thinking or not thinking, and the speech, the action, especially the flow of the mind, as it said, flow of the thoughts, and then we can start with, 4 times a day, so when that alarm rings, then it doesn't take, you don't have to do, half hours, 10, it can be just 2 minutes, 1 minute, just being watching and being mindful for a few moments. And then slowly, you can increase from 4 to 6 a day, 8 times a day, 12 times a day, and then slowly, so your mind get used to that, like everything is training your mind. And then slowly, you don't have to remind with that phone alert of the sound. You will be, because your mind getting that rhythm and that way of doing that. Then slowly, without anything to remind you, you will be able to go in that mindful, being mindful and alert more often than now, and slowly, most of the time, and slowly all the time. And if we can do that, then that would be great, that will help us a lot, a lot of time not being mindful of our flow of our thoughts. One of those afflictive emotions, thought arises, and we are not aware of that. We totally get consumed by that thought, and then out of that thought, then we say and do things that maybe we might regret later, things which we didn't want to do it, but that moment we did it, we said it, we did it. In that way, sometimes we hurt the other persons, and we also hurt ourselves. We also feel bad about ourselves, all of that. But if we're mindful enough to catch up that thought, when we have that thought, immediately, like Geshe Sherab, you try to apply the antidote, then we don't follow further than that. We don't go further than that, and we stop that negative thoughts from intensifying, from becoming stronger, bigger, as well as acting the negative thoughts, So then if we don't act the negative thoughts, even though we have negative thought, at least, we don't hurt and harm others directly and yourself by creating more negative karma through that hurtful, harmful actions, speech, and so forth, and so that can be very helpful. And then when you are mindful and vigilant in that way, then when you try to do practice and meditation, your practice and meditation become very effective. Because if you're the mindful and vigilant, then the moment your mind starts to get distracted or trying to become, when your mind starts to get distracted, immediately you will recognize, you will be able to catch it up. And then you will be able to bring your mind back to the object of your practice or meditations. If you don't have that mindfulness, we might be distracted for 5 minutes, thinking other things. While you are trying to meditate on something, your mind is going all over the world, thinking something else. Maybe after 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you recognize, oh, my mind was somewhere else. So then your practice didn't become so strong because your mind was distracted. Your mind was not there. But if you're mindful and vigilant, the moment that distraction thought arises, you will be able to recognize that and then not follow that mind or thought. Instead, you bring back your mind to the practice, the meditations. So then you will be able to do focus more. And also same, not only the distraction and excitement, also sometimes our practice is not strong because even when I'm not distracted, sometimes our mind become dull, there's no alertness and dull. And so again, when your mind is falling in that state of becoming more dull, then again, with mindfulness and alertness, you recognize that, and then you try to uplift your mind and with that alertness and keep it more, less dulls and more clarity and more excitement. I don't know excitement is the right word, but more enthusiasm in that. So yeah, like even with this, the practice of mindful, vigilant conscientiousness could be lifetime practice for us. This could be lifetime practice, even just that practice, again, in this one verse, 4 line, there is enough practice for our whole lifetime if we want to practice that in just that one, in just that one. And if we practice such mindfulness throughout the day, then also when you sleep on subconscious level, you can be mindful, more mindful, as even your dream, even sleep, you can be more mindful. And that, again, as Chandrakiri explained in the chapter on the second bhumi, the practice of moral discipline, and regarded to the second bhumis, and he talked about when you perfected so strong practice of moral discipline during the day, even during the dream or even the sleep, you wouldn't even have the thought to break those moral discipline, or transgress them, even in the dream, even in the thoughts. And that is also what His Holiness also mentions. He shared his experience, even in his dream, he dream of being a monk, simple monk. Even in dream, there are times when as a monk, you shouldn't be doing this or that, like that, So not only throughout the day, because when you are very mindful and vigilant throughout the day, even in the night, even in the sleep, even in the dream, such practice can come because it becomes more automatic. It becomes more with the practice, it becomes more spontaneous for practice. So then, even when you don't put effort, knowingly it can. So that is where I'm saying day, night, night, because when we sleep, of course, if we are really sleep, we are consciously not making the effort to be mindful, but because of the day practice, it can affect that. Even that level, you feel that effect and being more mindful, even in that, even in the sleep, even in the dream, and so forth. And then verse number 3. So those first two are more kind of preliminary practices, kind of the preparation preliminary practices. Then here it comes, like the main kind of starting kind of main practice of the Bodhisattvas, the main practice of the Bodhisattvas, starting the heart of the Bodhisattvas practice. And the heart of the Bodhisattva practice is to cultivate, great compassion, bodhicitta, and act with such great compassion, bodhicitta mind, and reducing the overcoming and reducing your selfish attitude of self-centeredness, the ego mind, self-centeredness, and increasing, improving true loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. That's a very hard practice for the Bodhisattvas. And out of that great compassion, love, bodhicitta, then engage in a practice of perfect generosity, patience, moral discipline, and so forth. Those are the Bodhisattvas' kind of main heart practice. So there, here, reveal your own shortcoming, but do not seek out others' errors. So the first line, reveal your own shortcoming. That is what Geshe Gunje did. That is what he was doing. He was not hiding. He was not hiding his shortcomings. We all have our shortcomings. As ordinary beings, as long as you are ordinary samsaric being, we have our own shortcomings. So he was revealing his shortcomings. By doing that, it crushed your ego. it crushes your ego. It crushes your self-importance, sense of superiority, That is sometimes, when we don't, we try to hide our shortcoming and we try to promote ourselves with our good qualities, And a lot of time that only enforce our ego and our pride, self-importance, and so forth. So the Bodhisattva's practice is to crush your ego, crush your ego, crush your feeling of superiority or self-importance, the delusional pride, that is one of the main practice, one of the main practice of Bodhisattvas. So therefore, such practice, such action, revealing your own shortcoming, your own weakness, your own mistakes, your own that is the tool, that is a practice, that is a tool to crush your ego. So that is why. And so that is also how Geshe Sherab tried to do that immediately. And that is why he was successful. That is why he was successful in a short time for him to, make progress in his practice. On the other hand, do not seek others either, Don't try to find others' faults, others' errors. If we try to find someone's problems, someone's faults, mistake, error, you will always find. You will start to find error in Buddhas. We will try to find errors in. You wouldn't find anyone who doesn't have any problems, who doesn't have any error or fault. If we try to find in that way, And if you find a fault and, others' mistake, error or fault or shortcoming, then that can give rise to negative thoughts, negative feeling towards that person or that beings. And once you have negative thoughts, negative feeling towards that being, then it diminishes our sense of compassion, true love, compassion, to feel true love and compassion with that person's or that beings. When you see the fault of that person, when you see the shortcomings and all this, then then a lot of time it started to lead to a negative feelings, bad feeling towards that being. And with that negative feeling, bad feeling of that person or that being, then it makes our feeling of true love, compassion toward them less, reduce that. And so again, if you try to find, you will always, Devadatta, was the Buddha's cousin, and he lived his whole life with Buddhas, but he never got anything from the Buddha. He never got anything from the Buddha. For him, he saw the Buddha very ordinary, because he was always looking for faults because of jealousy. there was, he was royal competitive, both were prince in the royal families. But even as a prince, Buddha got more attention than him. Then Buddha became a monk. He also joined a monk. Again, Buddha got all the attention. All people following Buddha, not him. So he always felt kind of, I don't know, overwhelmed, somehow. And he was kind of jealous with the Buddha. And with that mind, he tried to find faults. And with jealous mind, competitive minds, with that kind of looking for faults. And then when you try to look for others' faults, whether there is really fault or not, you will perceive a fault. You will see a fault, And so at the monastery, at one time there was one disciplinary, and he was very strict disciplinary, extremely strict disciplinary. And a lot of things he did good, if it wasn't him, maybe, things might not be as good. But at the same time, it almost feel like he overdid it, So, of course, there are certain rules, regulations, And one of them, at that time, before, it's okay to have meat, Some monks eat monks. Not everyone is vegetarian, Some of them are vegetarian, some are non-vegetarians. And then individually you could cook yourself, but then after some time they make rules that you cannot have in the monastery, you cannot cook, you cannot buy, you cannot cook, even in your house, even in your rooms, and it was during that time. And so, you imagine like there are like 4,000 monks, and sometimes he went in the monks' quarter, opened the refrigerator and like that, And then one time he found with one senior monk who had a meat in the refrigerator, So he took actions, he took action for violating the rules of the monastery, the new rules, And so, and the senior monks who got punished for breaking the rules. And he said, if you try to look for a problem, you will find. You will find all the time, every day. If you go and check, do it every day, you will find something problem, something, some error and something, and that is it, So anyway, so that, I don't know why, but yeah, do not seek your others' error, Consider your own good qualities and proclaim those of others. Again, is a practice of humility, humbleness, reducing the pride, delusional pride, reducing the ego, reducing the sense of superiority, instead trying to build and trying to practice the practice of humbleness, humility, and so that is, and as a part of that practice, to practice humility, humbleness, then, consider your own good qualities, your positive qualities, keep for yourself, other doesn't have to know, you doesn't have to know. The problem is if others know, then they try to praise you, they try to say nice things, and if you don't have strong practice, then you get carried away by them. Your ego get reinforced, your ego gets stronger, your pride gets stronger. You started to feel more special and more superior than you are, because people say nice thing about you, people says, respect you and show all these kind of different way of that because of your positive qualities, and so that could be obstacles for a practitioner, especially when we are still, beginners, still when we are not so practitioners, when you have reached certain level, high level, then it doesn't matter, doesn't matter. People say nice, it doesn't affect your ego. People say bad, criticize, you don't feel bad, you don't feel, bad about yourself because someone said bad about you, neither you don't feel you're superior or something great because someone said great. It wouldn't affect your mind. It wouldn't affect your mind regardless of what others says, what other things not, But when you don't have strong practice then that's definitely it affects us. It affects us how someone, what they say to us, how they respond to us, how they react to us, all of that response in terms of either becoming a low self-esteem, losing your self-confidence, and starting to doubt yourself, starting to feel negative about yourself. Or when someone said good thing, then you started to think maybe more superiority or better or special than actually is, and your ego can increase. And so therefore, that on the other hand, proclaim the doors of others. You try to hide your own positive qualities, especially spiritual positive qualities, is something that very much, is not something that you kind of expose, especially spiritual realization, spiritual positive quality is something that you keep to yourself, keep to yourself. On the other hand, then proclaim the positive qualities to others, when you see, when you hear, when you feel of someone's good quality, positive quality, try to share that, try to proclaim, trying to support them, try to encourage them, in their, when someone says compassion, kind, proclaiming that and trying to encourage that practice. When someone is generous, nice, kind, compassion, share that and proclaim that so that it can encourage the practitioner as well as other people to be more kind, more compassion, more generous, more patience, and more ethical, whatever those positive qualities that when we see in someone, is something that we try to, and then we proclaim them because we see them, because we feel and see them. And if we can see positive qualities and feel positive qualities in someone, then again, it helps us to feel is more respectful for them, to have better high regard to them, towards them, and also to feel more kind compassions, On the other hand, if we don't feel someone positive quality instead negative qualities, then as I mentioned before, then it can make us to feel negative and thereby, negative thoughts, negative feelings, and then thereby losing our compassion and so forth. Yeah. That again, that practice itself is again huge practice. That itself is huge practice. Is so much opposite of how our ordinary normal actions, behavior, or attitude. Normally, we try to hide our shortcoming. We try to proclaim our qualities, positive qualities. We try to hide others' positive qualities, especially if person is someone you dislike. And proclaim whatever small mistake, weakness, whatever they have, we proclaim to all others, And if they have positive qualities, we pretend we don't see them. We try to hide them. So here is kind of totally the opposite, and so again, it's dealing with our ego, sense of pride, negative pride, and so forth, and trying to cultivate more compassion. And so yeah, maybe I think maybe I will open for a few questions. If there is any questions, or if there is any comments or questions, feel free to do that. Yes, Snail.
Geshe, I really love that story, about the yogurt with the Geshe. And, his immediate antidote was to turn the cup upside down. So I was wondering, is there anything in between for attachment?
Well, I think it didn't mention exactly what went in his thoughts, in that between. Definitely he recognized there was attachments. Because of that attachments, that he started to worry about not getting that. All that he kind of recognized that immediately in that. And I'm sure that he must have thought certain way or contemplate some way to let go of that attachment. But in the story, it doesn't cover that part. So I don't know what exactly went in his mind, or how he, in terms of applying antidote, in terms of contemplating meditations. I don't know exactly, because it wasn't described in the story. It only described his actions, physical action, how he did that way. So yeah, but I'm sure that he must have contemplated over that.
I was just thinking, like for myself, like in my daily life, like I don't want to not eat the ice cream. So how can I have my ice cream, but, not have that clingy, attachment, or just, like, oh, I won't get it. And then when you get it, to be able to accept it.
Uh-huh.
No.
I don't know. I think there are certain things that we feel like we need it because it gives us some kind of joy. And if feel like if we don't have that maybe we might not have the joy, the fun, whatever. But recognizing, saying, I don't need that to be joy and happy. I could be equally joyful and happy even without that. And through that, if we are able to find certain way to be more joyful and happy even without that, and even without missing it after some time, then I think, then if you have, you enjoy it. If you don't have, you don't miss it. You don't feel like I need it. There's no sense of craving or desire. But when you get it, you just enjoy it. But when you don't have, you don't really kind of feel bad because you are missing, or because you are craving or something that, and I think to maybe that is more or less what I can say. Of course, we can talk about meditating on impermanent, meditating on emptiness, all of that, but I think that is totally something else.
Thank you, Geshe.
Yes. Any others? There is still we have.
You can unmute yourselves if you have questions, Richard.
Yes.
Geshe, first of all, thank you. That was a wonderful talk. The first anecdote you told about the thief, I was very struck by the sense of humor in his answer, and I was wondering whether I found it very charming and very beautiful and very appropriate. And I was wondering how intentional that was, or was I just reading a little too much into my own reaction of surprise?
I don't know. I think I don't know whether he was humorous or he did out of humorous or like that. I don't think so. But from our point of view, when we hear such stories, for us, it's touching and very kind of special. And the way he deals is very unique. It's not a kind of normal that we will respond or react in that way. Even as a Dharma practitioners, his way of response and reacting in such way is very unique of the way he did it. Not only that, with also other stories the other stories as well. So I think that was how he apply. That is how he practiced. That is how he apply. And I don't know whether he has any intentions or intentionally trying to be humorous or anything from his side. But from the way we see from our side, as you said, there is something very special and uniqueness of his way of applying.
Well, I think one of the things that struck me about the way in which he did it was the humility of it. In other words, another way of responding to his lapse of mindfulness would have been to beat himself up and to say, oh, I did this terrible thing, let me whip myself so that and punish myself for this transgression. But instead he went, oh gosh, I did this dumb thing, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And, I'll make a little joke out of it. And so everybody will realize that I did it, but it's not that big a deal. You know what I mean? That was sort of the impression I got from it, that there was a level of humility in the specific way in which he handled his lapse that I just loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think there is a sense of, I feel he has a great, courage and humility to do all what he did, and to be able to respond immediately in such a strong way. We might respond, but in such situation, but very in a not immediately, maybe not strong way, and maybe not the way he did it. I think it really required, as you mentioned, humility and courage to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Where did that story come from? Was that from Milarepa?
No. You find those stories in some of the Lojong practice. And maybe in some Lamrim, but mostly in Lojong practices. Yeah.
Michela, how do you spell the name of this Kadampa master?
Geshe Be Gunkel. Be Gunkel. I think Be Gunkel or Gunkel. Be Gunkel. Be Gunkel. Geshe Be Gunkel. And yeah, he was one of the Kadamba master, Kadamba teacher.
Thank you.
Okay. So we can do the dedications.
Okay.
But still there is, if you have any questions, still, if not, then we'll do the dedications. Okay, then we can do the dedications.
Pat, did you have a question?
Due to the merit of this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhisattva that has not arisen, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sound. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. And may the naked find clothing, hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, and those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease there in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be free. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sense and being remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the mysteries of the world. Fearless peace and assembly of children of victorious one, Sarvaga and Pagaya Bodhas, victorious Losang, Father and Son, along the lineage master, all the object of refuge in infinite land, please bestow the virtues and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the moon is precious and complete teaching, through explanation and practice, you hold the armor of patience that is never discouraged, incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of victorious one's teaching, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed with what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessing of the ocean of three jewels and great wave Bodhisattva of children of victorious one, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe. See you next week.
Thank you,
So
Geshe.
wonderful. Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Nate.
Thank you.